In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your TBS Vendetta super long range FPV. Of course, one of the requirements, as you have seen in a couple of my other videos, is having the TBS Crossfire long range RC System. This will allow you to get at least several miles of radio control that is very reliable and of course very compact. So you're going to need the Crossfire micro receiver, as that's one of the smallest receivers that will fit on the TBS Vendetta. And I also recommend with the Crossfire system having a little external battery pack, as you're going to want maximum transmission power of 2 watts. So just to make sure that your radio link is reliable, as where things do happen when you're going out several miles, especially on a racing quadcopter. And I should also disclose, on a racing quadcopter like this, you don't have return to home feature or loitering. So if you lose radio system or controller video, that's pretty much it. You're gonna lose your quadcopter. So this system, I'm going to show you how to make it super reliable and super long range, as flying a racing quadcopter out several miles I think is much more fun than flying a Phantom or some other big quadcopter. You got full manual control. It's just kind of a cool thing, and I figured I'd like to show you because I'm probably the only one that has ever done this, and I like to show off my work. So in order to do this, we're going to need a different kind of video transmission system. I'm going to be using 2.4 gigahertz video. If you want to, you can go 1.2, 1.3, but I prefer to use a 2.4 as I have a better ground station or receiver solution, which is the ground station by TBS, or Team Black Sheep. And this is, I'm going to be using the TBS Unify 800 milliwatt 2.4 gigahertz video transmitter right here. This one, the 1.2, 1.3 gigahertz video, is a generic one off of Hobby King. I'm not sure that the input voltage, I think it might be 5 volts. Some people are saying it's 12 volts. It didn't really come with a manual, but if you guys decide to go with this approach, just double check your input voltage before you connect everything up. And one thing is that the pinout on this, or the wiring, is a little bit different than on the TBS Unify. This is pretty much just a plug-and-play system with the TBS core that's already on the Vendetta. So I would recommend that you go with the 2.4, and you're gonna also get pretty clear video because you're going a little bit higher frequency, and you have more, what's the word, bandwidth. But I mean, you have different choices. The key point on this is you're gonna want a very small video transmitter system. So these are really small. And of course, I'm using IB Crazy VAS, or Video Aerial System, VAS 2.4 gigahertz antenna. You can use the 4 cloverleaf or the 3 cloverleaf. It doesn't really matter. 3 or 4 works fine. It says on the box where that you can use either or. Technically, you're supposed to use a 3 lobe, as I guess it's more optimized for the video transmitter. But I've gotten good results on both, so you decide what you want to do. Also, you're going to need a very high capacity battery pack. I'm usually using the Venom Fly 2200 milliamp or Lumiere 2250. The differences between these battery packs is that this has a little bit higher C rating, so a little bit more power, and in case you need to manage to do a punch out, you can get a little bit more. 35C, and this is 30C. And yeah, you kind of just need to decide on what kind of power system you're going to need, but you're going to need at least a pretty big battery pack if you're going to be going out several miles. I don't know if they have any larger battery packs, as larger ones kind of have different dimensions and they don't fit very well with the Vendetta chassis, because a lot of them are just too wide, so it just kind of fits awkward, and it's also too heavy. Another thing you have noticed is that I have a GPS system. This is just a TBS compass and GPS on here, and it's not necessarily needed for long range FPV, but when you're really far out, it's just a different perspective, and it's good to have navigation. I mean, even though you're going straight out and back, it's good to have some navigation and reassurance that, hey, I know where I'm doing or where I'm going. So it's good to have some kind of navigation. Of course, you're not going to have return to home feature, but it's not too heavy to have, and it's kind of nice. And I'm using the RunCam HD2, as this is a very light camera system compared to the GoPro. If you want to go even lighter, I would recommend that you pull the battery pack from here, and you can just use the USB cable and have that powered directly from the battery. So you want to, and the point of this is you want to make sure that you're lightening your quadcopter as much as possible, because as you can save, as by saving weight, you're going to be going much further as compared to a heavy quadcopter. Next, I recommend that you change the stock motors from the 2300 kV Cobra motors to a lower kV motor, as they are more efficient and they use a little bit less amperage. And that's what I've done here. I've also changed the ball bearings in here from the standard steel bearings to ceramic bearings. So they're more efficient, less friction, and that's going to equate to longer runtime. You can use tri-props, which I've been using, and I've gone pretty long range and round trip compared to your dual blade props, as the dual blade props, or the regular props, just don't give enough thrust, especially at lower kV. So I recommend just sticking with the tri-props. Unless if you're going to go with larger arms, such as here, the 6-inch arms, you're going to need to change your prop style just to get enough thrust, because you kind of want to watch how much amps you're drawing so you can go maximum range. So let's start with this mod. So I've already installed the Crossfire micro receiver system. It's actually really easy to install. So included with the Crossfire micro receiver is an S-bus cable. So you're going to change your default cable that comes with the Vendetta to the S-bus cable. And also you're going to connect your BST cable to one of the ports on the Core Pro PMP. And of course, if you want GPS, you're going to have to source another BST cable, which I had a few lying around from other builds I've had. And you're going to simply just make a parallel cable or a Y cable. And that will allow you to use up another, since we got to make a Y cable because there's only 2 BST ports. If we had 3 of them, which would be kind of nice, then you would just plug it in directly and just thread the cable through. So I've made a Y cable HDC right here. It's not too hard to do. It's just kind of time consuming and just kind of annoying to do. But once you've already done that, then you're going to have another BST cable and you connect that to your GPS system. Another thing to do is that you're going to need to get a Dremel or a file, and you're going to need to trim off this tab right here, as that is blocking where this antenna comes through right here. You're going to need to have your antenna sticking out for maximum range and control. Use the supplied antenna tube here so it sticks out something like this. I'll put a better picture in the video description on what the layout should be. But you're going to want your antenna sticking out. You don't want to have it covered inside the quadcopter body, which would look kind of nice because it's more compact, but you're not going to get very good penetration and signal from that. And of course you're going to need a soldering iron because we're going to do the next modification. And also because we're going to need to remove this 2.4 gigahertz case off the TBS Unify, and we're going to replace it with the tin included. I will show you that in just a second. One more thing is, since we're not going to be using the 5.8 gigahertz video system on here, we're just going to simply remove that. So let's do that right now. So let's just unthread this antenna a little bit, and then we're going to pull this transmitter out. It's recommended if you have a flathead screwdriver, that helps. I think I got one. So we're going to pull the cable out, detach this 5 volt video cable, and we're going to use it on the 2.4 gigahertz video. And then we got to remove the antenna system right here, the SMA, or the RP SMA. As you see here, I've removed the TBS Unify 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter, and we're left with no transmitter on here. So we've saved a couple grams off of this. So again, reduced amount of weight always helps. And of course we get more mounting room, which is really nice. I would say it would be really nice to mount the 2.4 gigahertz video transmitter inside the quadcopter body, but that's not really possible, and also having it run at such high power and 100 milliwatts is going to cause the video transmitter to burn out. So we're going to be mounting on the outside. First, let's rearrange some of the wiring right here. So how I mounted the Crossfire micro system is there's a specific way you need to do it. So there's actually a little what do you call it? A hex screw that you got to remove from here. You remove that, and remember this is a micro dipole antenna. So you're gonna so you got to deal with this extra antenna piece right there. This little small black wire. If you don't thread it in properly, you're never gonna be able to put your antenna tube on. So what we're going to do is we're going to thread it through like this. Oh yeah, and you should also remove the little black heat shrink tubing right here, as it will make it pretty much impossible to thread with the stock antenna tube. So we're going to thread this antenna through all the way until this thing doesn't go through. Because if this part goes through, the part of the antenna goes through, then you're not going to be able to, it's not going to be able to work out with the antenna tube. So thread it through enough, like right here, just enough where it's like sticking out right here. And so once you have that, you can just tuck the rest of the antenna in, and then just thread the antenna through like this. Hard to do with one hand. So you have your little dipole antenna right here, and then when you've done it right, it should look like this. You have your part of the other part of the antenna just sticking through here, which is fine. And then everything is nice and flush. So your setup should be where your receiver is no higher than this part of the chassis, as it just won't fit inside the quadcopter frame. So once you have like this, then you're pretty much ready to go. We're going to take this excess wire right here, and what's going to happen is we're going to end up putting this all the electronics back inside, and we're gonna thread it through this hole right here. So it's gonna take some work to get everything fitted through, but we're gonna have a little bit of wire sticking out through here, and then your video transmitter is gonna stick out rest on top of here. So let's go to the next step, soldering. You're gonna need a soldering iron, and you're gonna need a Phillips screwdriver, and you're gonna remove the case off the TBS Unify 2.4 gigahertz video transmitter. So as soon as you remove the case, you're going to have a little bit of thermal grease that's being used to cool with the heatsink. Let me zoom in on this. It's on the back side right here. This nice gray paste. Just simply remove it. You can take a piece of paper towel. Try to rub most of it off, and then you're going to use a little bit of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and to remove the rest of it. So try to remove as much of it as you can. Alright, this looks very, very clean, and we're not going to need this heatsink system anymore, so I'm just going to toss this in the trash can. The reason why we removed that heatsink is to save space and weight as well. Again, save as much weight as you can for maximum flight time. And we're going to put this aluminum heatsink on top of it like this. See right here? We're going to end up soldering just this part right here, this metal right here, to the gold part right here. It's pretty easy to do. I mean, you should be proficient at soldering. Yeah, so it's just going to need to look like this. and we've already reduced the weight and the size of this significantly. So with this setup right here, it's actually skinnier than this 1.2 gigahertz video transmitters right here. I guess you could probably remove the shield right here, but that might have kind of odd consequences. I'm not entirely sure. You could do that so you can get even smaller. The reason why we're going to remove, besides, I mean, if you're wondering, without having the heatsink on there, is this thing going to burn up? Well, since we're mounting this outside of the quadcopter, it's actually going to get enough cooling, and I haven't seen any issues with overheating or anything like that. So it's fine to have it with this little tin sheet on here. Make sure everything is nice and straightened out. And then we're going to turn on our soldering iron. And of course, it's a good idea to have some kind of tweezers or maybe a third hand, so you don't burn yourself, because this gets pretty hot. Again, when you're soldering the little tin on here, it needs to be soldered to the gold part of the PCB, as if it's touching anything else, it could result in a short, which is not good, and you're going to end up burning out the video transmitter. So double check when you're soldering that everything is straight and centered. So I like to solder one side just a little bit, tack a little bit of solder. See right there in that upper corner? And I'm going to do the same with the other side. So make sure it's clean enough. As apparently I didn't remove all of the thermal grease. A little bit of gray stuff still left. That looks a little bit better. Again, use your tweezers. Self-locking tweezers are the best. I've been using these for years for soldering, and I've achieved amazing results with this. I'm also using a digital soldering iron, so I'm getting excellent control and heat with this. So I recommend you guys use a digital soldering iron, not a cheap old soldering iron, as it makes a difference in the end. Having good tools is so much better. Everything seems to work so much better with excellent tools. Alright, I finished soldering everything, the little tin piece on here. It shouldn't take as long as I did, but I want to make sure it looks really neat and use the minimal amount of solder, just enough to do the job, as it's going to provide cooling and of course protection of the elements for your video transmitter. So it looks like this. Pretty good job I did. Also, when you're soldering the tin on here, make sure that your iron isn't on here too long, otherwise you can definitely risk burning out the transmitter. So again, if it's way too hot to touch, you probably should take a little break from the soldering and then just reapply it again. It does cool off really quick, as this is aluminum, so it conducts heat pretty well and dissipates it really well. So we have that. We're going to need some double-sided sticky tape. I recommend using this gray stuff from 3M. I'm not sure exactly what the name of the material is, but you can find it at your local Home Depot shop. But definitely you want to use as really sticky tape, as you're gonna need to have it be secure to your quadcopter. So put this sticky stuff on the back, and you're gonna cover up all the way up to the SMA connector right here, because you want to cover this stuff right here so it doesn't short against the frame of the quadcopter, because that's carbon fiber, and carbon fiber conduct electricity. Just trim off the excess. Okay, so we've mounted the double-sided sticky stuff to the transmitter right here. Next, we're going to remove this padding right here, this rubber padding right here, and then we're going to stick it on top of here, of the other rubber padding. So carefully remove it, as you want to use the sticky stuff from the back right here, as much of it as possible. Just make sure it's nice and smooth right here, and we're going to stack it on top right like this. If for some reason there's no more sticky stuff on the back, you can use some double-sided tape just to make sure it sticks well. But I was fortunate and I managed to pull it off. Next, we're going to take our video transmitter. I'm going to pull this red tape, this backing off of here. And then we're going to stick it right in the middle, right here. You want it centered just like this, right here. Give it a good amount of pressure. So once that has been stuck down, yeah, this thing isn't going anywhere. See right here? It's not going anywhere. Messed up a little bit, you can just pull a little bit off and recenter it. So one thing is that you want to make sure all the holes are covered. I didn't cover the very bottom. I'm just being really picky, but cover as much of it as you can. But I mean, you can try once or twice. Once the video transmitter heats up, yeah, it's gonna, this sticky stuff isn't going anywhere. Stick it nice and well right here. It's also, when you have your battery on top of it, it's gonna help. So the reason why we put this rubber stuff on here is, see, is right here, it's pretty much exactly the same height. So it allows for nice even balance and distribution. Stick it on great well right here. And the next part we're gonna need some fiberglass tape. You could use some electrical tape, but I recommend using fiberglass or Kapton tape, as it's going to help protect the top part from getting too hot and maybe ruining your battery. But again, it's outside, so it's going to have pretty ample cooling. But this is what I did on my other quadcopter. So I recommend that you do the same thing. Cut some fiberglass Teflon tape. You only need a small bit, and then we're going to double stack it. So one piece and one piece on top. Of course, don't cover the channel hole right here. as that's going to be useful for changing to different frequencies as needed. Looks quite excellent. Yeah, this thing isn't going anywhere. To show you for sure, mount the antenna on the back. Try to move it around. Yeah, it's really secure. And to make it even more secure, we're going to take a little bit of hot glue and put a few drops on it. Again, don't use too much hot glue as more weight. Hot glue is completely optional. Alright, so we have finished putting the video transmitter on the back of the Vendetta mainframe right here. I put some hot glue around it just to secure a little bit better and just to, yeah, just pretty much it. I mean, you don't have to. The double-sided tape is strong enough, and of course you're going to have the battery pressure on here anyway. But I just do it as just a little bit extra insurance in case if I do crash really bad, it's not gonna, the transmitter's not gonna fly off or just break off. Next is we need to mount the frame in through. I'm gonna try and do my best to show how I do this, otherwise I'm probably just gonna end up speeding this part of the video up. Essentially what's gonna happen is we're gonna take this cable right here. I don't like this cable. This cable's a little old right here. Your transmitter comes with a 5-volt VTX cable. You can use it. You can use this one that comes with it, with the Vendetta or the new one. I like the new one because it's nice and straight, not bent like this. What's gonna happen is your video transmitter is gonna plug in. Your cable's gonna end up coming out through like this. Let me pull the little tag off right here. Your video cable is going to come through this little hole right here, and it's going to attach just like this. So everything's nice internal, nice and tucked in, just like that. So nice and compact. It's not going to hit it with the props. If you want to, you can take another dab of hot glue and just secure that in there. I usually just don't because the connector is so tightly fit in here, but you can if you want, just as another added protection and just so this wire doesn't pop out. But yes, your video transmitter is going to be hooked up like this. It will look really nice and you're going to have 2.4 gig video on here. So let me mount everything in here and I'll show you the final results. And of course, just make sure everything is updated, the firmware, as it's going to kind of be a pain to pull everything out just to update the firmware on the Core Pro. So just do that before you're going to install everything. Saves you time in the long run. And it's a good idea to have some tweezers, so when you push everything together. I recommend that you use a little bit of tape. You can use a little bit of electrical tape or Kapton tape to secure this. So I'm going to do that right now. When you're taping up everything, just make sure you don't tape the buttons on the Core Pro, as in case if you ever need to manually override something, as let's say your controller is not being detected, you can always stick a little piece of plastic and navigate through the Core's OSD.
Destined to find one another.
Alright, so we have everything assembled successfully. I did some stuff off camera, such as put the arms on and put some hot glue at the critical points, so the antenna tube right here and on the wire. So just note that you're going to want to make sure to put everything back together and make sure it doesn't snag against the chassis as it ends up destroying the wire. So just take your time putting everything back together. And we're going to power this thing on. Make sure that you have your VTX antenna on, as if you don't have it on with your transmitter, you can end up burning the thing out, which is not a good idea. We have our ground station right here. They're 2.4 gigahertz video. I don't have my radio transmitter nearby, so if I power this thing on without it, it's going to make a loud annoying beep. It's just part of the fail-safe system of CleanFlight and the onboard buzzer. So just bear with it for a second. So we see that we are getting clean video. It's really nice and good looking right here. Pretty much nothing to go through. This thing's really annoying. But I'm going to post a video of it flying on my sister channel, JP Media Productions, where I do for a bunch of other videos. So just check on that channel. I'll put a link in the video description on that. Another few things is that I don't have any extra material, but you could fill this in this gap right here. So when you put your battery on, it'll just provide a little bit more stable platform. So you can, if you have more rubber material, just slap it on right here. I guess you could use probably some tape or something. Just put it right here, just to make it, just to fill it in. Again, don't use too much to save on some weight, but it's going to help with a little bit more of the battery stability when you strap everything together. So yeah, that's pretty much on how to make your TBS Vendetta super long range FPV. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. And as always, have a nice day.